It's a Saturday morning and you're walking a used car lot, coffee going cold in your hand, and there it is. A Chinese Ute, 3 years old, dual cab, four-wheel drive, big screen inside, still smells almost new. And the sticker on the windscreen stops you dead because it's sitting there at nearly half of what the Toyota parked right next to it is asking. Same age, same kilometers, half the money. And your first thought, the thought they're counting on, is that somebody's made a mistake. And this is the bargain of the year. I'll be straight with you. That gap is not a mistake. That gap is the whole story of this video. That gap is the market doing quiet arithmetic that nobody wrote down for you, pricing in a risk you can't see when the thing is shiny and new on the showroom floor. And that risk is exactly what I want to walk you through today, because there is a brand new wave of dirt cheap Chinese Utes flooding into Australia right now for 2026, and some of them are genuinely good trucks. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you they're all rubbish. That would be lazy and it would be wrong. But a few of them worry me, and they worry me for reasons that have almost nothing to do with how they drive off the lot, and everything to do with what happens to you 3, 5, 7 years down the track. I've had a fair few of these up on the hoist now. I've made the phone calls trying to find a part for a badge that packed up and left the country. I've watched what these things do at trade-in time, and I've watched the same movie play out in this market once already, about a decade ago, with a different cast. So this is not me sneering at cheap cars. I love a cheap, honest, overbuilt tool as much as anyone alive. This is me showing you where the money actually goes and where the risk actually lands, so you can walk that lot with your eyes open. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which of these 7 to be careful with, why, and the one question you need to ask before you sign anything. The question the salesman really does not want to answer. And stay with me right to the end, because the truck sitting at number 1 is the one that should make you the most nervous, and it's not the cheapest, and it's not the ugliest. It's the one whose maker has already done this to Australian owners once before. So let me show you what's really going on here, because you need one idea in your head before we start. When you buy a Ute, you are not just buying the metal. You are buying a promise. A promise that in 5 years there'll still be a dealer to service it, still a warehouse with parts on the shelf, still a company standing behind that lovely long warranty they waved at you. The Japanese and the established brands sell you that promise almost by accident, because they've been here 40, 50 years and they're not going anywhere. Some of these new Chinese brands are selling you the metal at a brilliant price and quietly hoping you don't notice the promise is the part that isn't guaranteed. And that warranty they keep pointing at, 7 years, sometimes with big kilometre numbers behind it, understand what that actually is. It's a promise made by a company, and it's worth precisely as much as that company being around and still solvent to honour it. A 7-year warranty from an outfit that's been here 50 years is a rock. A 7-year warranty from a badge that turned up the day before yesterday and is quietly bleeding money on slow sales is a piece of paper, and paper doesn't fix a gearbox. Keep that in your head. Everything today comes back to it. Number 7, the GWM Cannon. And I'm putting the Cannon here at the soft end of the list on purpose, because it's the one that's actually earned a bit of trust, and I want you to understand this isn't a hit job on a country. GWM Great Wall has been here longer than the rest of this new lot. The base Cannon lands around 37,500 drive away. It's a genuinely capable thing off-road in standard trim. And here's the kicker. Of all the cheap Utes in this market, it actually holds its resale value the best. Better than the LDV, better than most. So why is it on the list at all? Because even the good one bites. In 2025, GWM had to recall around 2,870 Cannons because the wrong lubricant went onto the fuel filter O-ring at the factory. And over time, that seal could let diesel leak out. Then the bigger Cannon Alpha, all versions, diesel, hybrid, plug-in, about 2,500 of them, got pulled back because the power steering wiring could rub through against the drive shaft and leave you with no steering assistance, or the engine shutting itself off, with no warning while you're driving. And think about what that fault actually is. A wiring loom routed close enough to a spinning drive shaft that it can chafe right through. That's not some exotic engineering gremlin. That's a basic packaging and quality control miss. The sort of thing a bit more care on the production line simply doesn't let happen. Then another one, around 1,400 of the hybrids, over a wiring shield that wasn't earthed properly. That's 3 recalls in 1 year on one Ute family. and one of them is the sort that scares you. So the Cannon's my gentle warning shot. It's the best of the bunch, and it still had a rough year. Hold that thought, because the pattern only gets louder from here. Number 6, the JAC T9. Now this one's interesting, because on paper it's the value hunter's dream. It's often the cheapest new ute you can buy in this country, kicking off around $42,500 before on-roads, and here's the part that surprises people. It is genuinely well built. The interior shames a lot of trucks costing 20 grand more, and it carries a 5-star safety rating from ANCAP earned under the strict 2024 rules, which is not nothing. JAC will happily tell you it's the safest ute in the country by the numbers, and there's a real argument for that. So where's my problem? 2 places. First, it's soft. Small 2-litre diesel, around 120 kilowatts, and it feels it. It's forever hunting through its gears to keep up on a hilly road, and JAC quietly walked its towing claim back from the headline 3.5 ton down to 3.2, which matters if you actually tow. Second, and this is the real one, JAC is brand new here. Landed in 2024. It's brought in by an independent importer, not the factory itself. And nobody, not one person on earth, can tell you what a JAC T9 is worth, or how it holds together at 150,000 kilometres, because no JAC T9 in Australia has got there yet. You'd be a test pilot, a well-looked-after test pilot with a 7-year warranty, sure. But a test pilot. Number 5, the MG U9. And this is where the story gets a bit cheeky, so pay attention. MG turned up late to the Ute party and undercut everybody, starting under 53,000 drive away for a truck this size, and it's got proper hardware, real low-range 4-wheel drive, a rear diff lock, a torquey 2.5-litre diesel making 160 kilowatts. On the face of it, cracking value. Here's what nags at me. That 5-star safety rating it advertises? MG didn't crash a diesel U9 to get it. They leaned on the European crash result of the electric version of this truck's twin, a vehicle with no diesel engine sitting over the front axle, a completely different weight sitting completely differently. The two are close cousins, and the regulator allowed it, but a heavy oil burner and a battery electric truck do not hit a wall the same way, and you're being sold the rating off the wrong one, then the driver assist tech. On the U9, the lane keeping and the speed sign nagging don't just beep at you, they shudder the steering wheel in your hands, and every single time you start the truck, you've got to go back into the menus and switch the nonsense off again. And the warranty's got fine print, 5 years if you're a private buyer, only stretching to the headline 7 if you service it inside the MG network. It's a lot of truck for the money. Just know the money's buying you a few asterisks. Number 4, the LDV Terran 9. And I'll tell you the honest truth about number 4 right up front. It's basically the same truck as number 5. Same body, same underpinnings, same engine, built by the same parent company, JAC, then handed a different badge for a different showroom. MG's version is the U9, LDV's version is the Terran 9, and they even share the same number in the name, which tells you how hard anybody worked to hide it. And that on its own is a kind of warning, isn't it? When a truck exists purely so the same factory can sell you the same thing twice under 2 names, you're looking at a vehicle built first and foremost to a price and a marketing plan. The Terran 9 runs from about 53,500 up to nearly 59, 163 kilowatts, a real 3.5-ton tow rating, and it carries that exact same borrowed 5-star rating off the electric cousin. Its driver assist is, if anything, worse behaved than the MG's. One reviewer called the lane keeping bordering on scary in the wrong moment, and it wears the LDV badge, which brings its own baggage. Because LDV's track record in this country for rock-solid long-term reliability is, let's be kind, still being written, and not always in the brand's favour. 2 badges, 1 truck, and a safety star borrowed from a vehicle that doesn't even share an engine. That's number 4. Number 3, and this is the one that's going to get me letters, because it's the darling, the one everybody's buying, the BYD Shark 6. Now, let me be crystal clear so nobody misunderstands me, because I don't want to be unfair to a genuinely clever machine. As a thing to drive, the Shark is brilliant. It's a plug-in hybrid, it'll do most of your week on electricity, it's quiet, it's quick, it'll outsprint a Ranger Raptor to 100, and BYD have sold more than 24,000 of them here, which is astonishing for a brand this new. If you want a comfortable, cheap-to-run family truck that happens to look like a ute, it might be perfect for you, and I mean that. So why on earth is it at number 3 on a list of utes to be careful with? Because most of the people drawn to a ute are drawn to it because it's a work tool. And as a work tool, the standard Shark quietly falls short in ways the ad doesn't mention. It'll only carry 790 kilos in the tray, which is light for this class, because the batteries make it heavy, nearly 2.7 ton empty. It'll only tow 2.5 ton, where the diesel competition tows 3.5, a full ton less. And the badge on the tailgate says AWD, not 4x4, and that's not marketing hair splitting. It means no low range gearing and no locking differentials. And out in the slippery stuff, early versions got embarrassed because the traction control just couldn't cope. BYD have since brought out a dearer performance version and a software fix that patch a lot of that. But here's the deeper thing that keeps it high on my list. It is a complex plug-in hybrid, a big battery, a petrol engine, and a stack of computers deciding how they dance together. That's a wonderful thing when it's new and under warranty. It is a very big unknown to own outright at 10, 12 years old, which is exactly how long people keep a ute. Think about everything packed in there. A big high-voltage battery, an inverter, 2 electric motors, a petrol engine that spends half its life acting as a generator, and a brain deciding, thousands of times a second, which of those should be driving the wheels. When it's all humming, it's genuinely magic. But when something in that chain plays up at 11 years old, and it's long out of warranty, you are not looking at a simple diesel. A local bloke can sort with a spanner and a laptop. You're looking at high-voltage systems, dealer-level diagnostics, and a repair bill that can quietly make the whole truck not worth fixing. You're not buying a simple tool. You're buying a rolling computer that happens to have a tray. Number 2, the LDV T60. And now we're getting into the genuinely worrying territory. The stuff that isn't about resale spreadsheets, it's about the metal itself. The T60 is the old-timer of the cheap Chinese Utes. It's been here for years. It's one of the most affordable trucks going at around 41,000 drive away. And I'll give it this, it's got a gutsy engine, 160 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, more grunt than a lot of its rivals. But everything wrapped around that engine has aged badly. And one thing in particular should stop you cold. Rust, LDV itself, has a corrosion program running in this country because enough owners reported these things rotting, and I mean properly rotting. Doors, panels, bodywork, on trucks only a few years old that had lived their whole lives in a garage. I've read owners describing a T60 written off, scrapped, unroadworthy, over rust, before it was old enough to vote. That is a build quality problem, plain and simple, corners cut on the rust proofing to hit a price. And I'll tell you exactly what that means, because rust proofing a truck properly isn't magic. It's just cost. It's decent steel to start with. It's a proper electro coat dip, so every seam and every hidden face is sealed. It's wax pumped up inside the chassis rails and the box sections where you'll never lay eyes on it. And it's drain holes that actually stay clear, so when water gets in, it runs straight back out instead of sitting in a sealed cavity, quietly eating the metal from the inside. Skip a few of those steps to shave a few dollars a truck, and the rot starts exactly where you can't see it, until a panel bubbles or a chassis rail goes soft under your hand. That's not bad luck. That's a decision somebody made in a meeting. On top of that, you get the diesel particulate filter choking up if you only do short city trips, throttle by wire that gets confused, an infotainment system that argues with your phone and used to blast the stereo to full volume on startup. And it's got no current ANCAP safety star to its name. And it's the worst of this whole group at holding its value, keeping barely half after 3 years while a Toyota holds 70 plus. Gutsy engine. Everything else, a warning. And number 1, the one I told you to wait for, the Foton Tunland. And to understand why this is my number 1, you don't need to look under the bonnet, you need to look at the history, because this is not Foton's first crack at Australia. It's their second. Foton was here before, over a decade ago, sold the old Tunland with a Cummins diesel, became a bit of an industry punchline, and then packed up and left, and everyone who'd bought one was left holding a truck from a brand that had walked out the door. Now, the best part of 10 years later, they're back all new Tunland, and they want you to trust them again. And look, the new truck is a lot of metal for the money, from around 40,000 for the base V7 up to 50 for the top V9. It's the size of a small American pickup. It's well equipped. But the engine's a wheezy little 2-litre making 120 kilowatts that reviewers called laggy and underdone in a truck this big. And here's a detail worth knowing. The old Tunland at least had a genuine Cummins diesel. That was its one real selling point. The thing people remembered it fondly for. This new one doesn't. It's co-developed with Cummins, they'll tell you, which is a very carefully chosen phrase that means it isn't one. There's also a mild hybrid system bolted on, a little 48-volt setup. And don't picture anything clever. It doesn't drive the truck on its own, and you can't plug it in. It mostly just harvests a bit of energy when you lift off the accelerator, and it does it firmly enough that the truck coasts strangely and snatches at you when you back off. Complexity added not to make the truck better to live with, but to help it tick a box on an emissions chart. It's got a stack of nannying quirks. It drops your music volume whenever another car comes near. The climate control can't hold a steady temperature, the screen freezes up. And here's the one that matters most for a work vehicle. As of the middle of 2026, it has no ANCAP safety rating at all. None. It hasn't been independently crash tested for our market, so you've got an unproven truck with an unrated body from a brand that already abandoned this country once, now trading under its third or fourth different local distributor. Everything about that says take a breath before you sign. That's number one. Now I want to show you one more thing before we step back, because it's the bit nobody puts in the brochure. A truck doesn't have to break to leave you stranded. It just has to become unfixable. When you own a HiLux or a Ranger, there's an entire quiet universe holding you up that you never once think about. Every wrecker has a shelf of parts. Every independent mechanic in every town has had 100 of them through the workshop and knows the thing backwards. The aftermarket stamps out filters and pumps and panels for cents, and you can have a genuine part over the counter tomorrow morning. That universe took 40 years to build, and it stands there for you whether the brand's having a good year or a terrible one. A truck that's only been on sale here for 18 months has almost none of that yet, and if the badge behind it ever goes quiet, that universe never gets built at all. So the vehicle can be running perfectly and still become a problem, because the day it needs a part you can't source, or a mechanic who's never laid eyes on one, a perfectly good truck turns into a very large paperweight in your driveway. That's the risk that never shows up on a test drive. Now here's the part that actually matters, the part I really want you to sit with, because it's bigger than any one of these 7 trucks. Ask yourself why that used Chinese Ute on the lot was half the price of the Toyota. It's not because the Toyota's twice as good to drive. Honestly, some of these Chinese Utes are nicer inside. It's because the market has quietly decided that the promise behind these trucks is worth less. The promise that the parts will be there. The promise that the brand will be there. And the brutal thing is, the market has good reason, because Australia has run this exact experiment before, and we've got the results. Go back to around 2009. Great Wall opened the door, and a parade of cheap Chinese brands came marching through behind it. Geely, Sherry, Foton, ZX Auto, JMC. All of them selling you a lot of metal for very little money, all of them waiving warranties, all of them here to stay, they said. And of that entire parade, one single brand is still standing today, and that's Great Wall, now GWM, and even it had to survive a scandal to get here. Every other one of those names is gone, left. And when a brand leaves, the warranty leaves with it, the parts get hard, then impossible, and your bargain Ute becomes an orphan you can't fix and can't sell. And it got worse than just leaving. In 2012, the regulator had to recall around 24,000 Great Wall and Sherry vehicles because the engine and exhaust gaskets contained asbestos. Asbestos. In cars sold new, in this country decades after we'd banned the stuff. And because it was bound into the gaskets, the official answer wasn't even to rip it all out straight away, it was to slap a warning sticker in the engine bay and tell owners and mechanics to be careful in there. Some of those cars are still driving around with that sticker under the bonnet. One of those old Great Wall Utes scored a 2-star crash rating. That's the graveyard these bargains came from. So here's the honest reckoning, and it's not a conspiracy, it's just cold commercial sense. There is very little money in a truck that lasts 25 years, and that any bloke in any country town can fix with parts off the shelf. There is a great deal of money in moving shiny, complicated metal out the door fast and cheap, front-loading all the value into that low sticker price, and letting the depreciation and the parts problem and the who's going to fix this quietly become the second owner's problem. Or your problem at trade-in, when you find out the hard way what that gap on the windscreen was really measuring. The good ones in this group might well be here in 10 years. I hope they are, because the competition's been good for all of us. But hope is not a spare part, and nobody selling you the 7-year warranty can tell you for certain they'll be around for year 7. And that's the thing that's really being taken from you here, and it's worth naming plainly. It's not just money. It's the whole quiet confidence that used to come with buying a proper workhorse. There was a time you bought a Ute and it was a settled thing. You knew it'd start, you knew you could fix it, you knew that if the worst happened, you could get a part in a day and there'd be somebody who knew the truck backwards. That certainty, that boring, unglamorous certainty, is a real thing of value. And it doesn't show up on any spec sheet or in any ad, and it's exactly the thing you quietly hand back when you chase the lowest sticker on an unproven badge. A truck you can trust with your livelihood is worth more than a truck with a bigger screen. It just is. The old fellas who bought a HiLux and ran it for 300,000 kilometers understood that in their bones. They weren't buying transport. They were buying the right to not think about it. And that's the thing worth protecting. So here's what I actually want you to do with all this. Because I'm not telling you to never buy a Chinese Ute. That ship has sailed, and some of them are good. I'm telling you to buy with your eyes open. First, before you fall for any sticker price, ask the one question the salesman dodges. How long has this exact brand been selling in Australia? And is it backed by the factory or by a local importer who could hand the keys back tomorrow? If the answer is thin, treat that lovely long warranty as a maybe, not a promise. Second, check the safety rating yourself and check whether it was earned by that actual truck or borrowed off a cousin, because a borrowed star and a missing star are both worth being careful about. Third, look up the resale before you buy, not after, because a truck that loses half its value in 3 years has told you exactly what the market thinks of its future. And fourth, if you genuinely keep your vehicles a long time and you work them hard, weigh the boring old proven workhorse honestly against the flashy newcomer, because holding 70% of your money and being fixable in any town is not nothing. It might be everything. Picture where that leaves you. 2, 3 years down the road, and while your mate's staring at a trade-in number that's fallen through the floor on a badge that's gone quiet, you're the one who did the arithmetic before you signed. You knew what that windscreen gap was really measuring. You either bought the proven thing and it just kept working and kept its value, or you went in on the new one clear-eyed about the risk you were taking and why. Either way, you weren't the one who found out the hard way. And that right there is the whole difference between being sold a truck and buying one. So let me leave you with a question, and I read every single one of these. They're the reason I keep making them. Tell me in the comments below, would you take a punt on a cheap Chinese Ute today? Or would you still hand over the extra money for a Toyota or a Ranger and buy the peace of mind? And if you've owned one of these, a T60, a Cannon, a Shark, a JSC, whatever it is, tell me the truth about it. The good and the bad, how it's held up, what it did at trade in time. Because your hands-on experience is worth more than any brochure, and it helps the next person walking that lot far more than I can. Tell me where you are too, town or country, because parts and dealers look very different once you're a few hundred kilometers from a capital city. And subscribe and stick around, because next time we're pulling apart one of the biggest quiet swindles in the whole industry, and it's 3 little words printed in owner's manuals everywhere. Lifetime fluid. Filled for life, they tell you. Never needs changing. That transmission's sealed for the life of the vehicle. And here's the surprising part I'll show you. That fluid does have a life. It's just been engineered to be a good deal shorter than the transmissions, and once you understand why, you'll understand exactly who profits when your gearbox quietly cooks itself at 140,000 kilometers. That one's going to make you angry in the best way. Until then, do me a favor. Next time you see one of these bargains with a sticker that looks too good to be true, don't just look at the number. Look at who's going to be standing behind it in 5 years. Because the cheapest truck on the lot and the most expensive truck to own are, more often than you'd think, parked in the very same spot.